Hey Sheila,
Hi. Hey,
how's it
Sheila.
going?
I'm okay. How's it going?
Fine. I just realized I didn't pull all these bios into a single document that I could look at easily while I'm giving them. So I'm doing that quickly. Sheila, is there anything you want me to say about your bio?
Are you just using my MinnPost bio?
I can, yes.
How do I sound right now? Should I put on one of those things?
I think you sound fine.
Yeah, I think so. Fine.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Okay. It's raining right now.
it is.
Can you hear the
Thunder
rain?
and lightning.
Yeah.
I can't hear the rain on yours. If there's going to be any rain sounds, it's going to be on mine because we're on the top floor and the rain sound is obnoxious. But thankfully, I'm only speaking for a couple minutes, so
Tanner, we kind of match right now. I'm wearing,
it's coordinated.
yeah.
I think we should scrap this whole lineup. Sheila, you and I should just do a deep dive into our theater history together, I think.
Yeah, well, we should definitely tell them that we used to do theater together. It wasn't like it was like that long ago. I mean, it is a long time
It
ago.
was over a decade ago, so
But I mean, like in our years, it seems like 2 seconds ago. I know
that's
like
true.
for other people,
That's true.
maybe that sounds like a long time.
That's true. Okay, let me hold on. I gotta get these bios together. Laura, I
Yeah.
just made you a
What do you think?
co-host. Sheila, did you have any questions? I want to talk through anything.
I'm gonna let Elizabeth.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you guys good on the questions?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Are you guys good on like Tanner, are you good on like managing the questions and stuff?
Yeah, Sheila, are you just gonna turn it back? Are you just gonna open that up at some point? Do you want me to like actually say the questions from chat or what's?
No, well, let's see. I think what would be helpful is I don't know how many questions there's going to be. If there's like a ton of questions, it might be helpful for you to curate and like send me a message of like, because it's like a little bit hard. I've never actually done this before, hosting, like being the host of a Zoom thing. So I don't really know how it will be. I just know I've like experienced it as like a, watching it happen. But I think it might be helpful if you kind of like, okay, this is a good question, and then maybe like send me a direct message.
Yeah.
With those questions. So then and I think, like I had when I talked to Elizabeth, we said maybe the last 15 minutes. I think we should just play it by ear, because if there's like a million questions, we might as well do 20 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fine.
So I think we can just decide, as it gets closer, if we want to start the discussion at 20 till as opposed to quarter till. And I think, I don't see why we couldn't, have people with the Zoom setup that we have right now, can we like allow people to speak?
Yeah, absolutely.
You
And in
know,
fact, that's our preference. I will say, when we've done these in the past and offered that up, almost nobody does it. They all want to put it in the chat, but I don't know, maybe this will be a different group who will be much more game for that kind of thing. But you
yeah,
could certainly, I would offer it up as both options if
because
they want
isn't
to
there a thing
unmute.
where they can like raise their hand?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, so we'll just go by that. Rick, if you want to actually speak, you can raise your hand. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Hey, Justin.
Hi there.
How's it going?
I'm hanging in there. How are you?
Doing all right. Doing all
Hi,
right.
Justin.
You two have talked. You've met, right?
We talked on the phone, but this
Okay.
is the first time I'm seeing you in person.
Would you like me to change the name on the little thing to anything? My title, my organization?
You could probably put Theater Latté on there just to
Okay.
make it official. And Sheila, you can, or so maybe Laura, you can update it for Sheila to put MinnPost on there.
Yeah, I can do that.
So Sheila, and we should open this up to everybody, like at least in the next couple minutes, but Sheila, your MinnPost bio reads as follows. Sheila Regan is a Twin Cities-based arts journalist. She writes MinnPost twice weekly Artscape column, and that's it. Do you want anything more on there?
Well, you can say that I have my newsletter as well.
Yeah. Oh, you best believe we're going to be promoting that newsletter like nobody's business.
And yeah, I mean, you can say she writes for various outlets in the Twin Cities and elsewhere.
Yep.
And she has a theater background, including she did 2 plays with me.
Yes. And in fact, that's all we're going to talk about today is our theater background together and our matching shirts.
We should probably open up the meeting here. Hi, Leah. You are muted.
Hi, sorry, I'm like between rehearsals, and so I was like trying to rearrange the room so there wasn't a bunch of weird shit in the background. Okay,
Okay, thanks so much for joining us.
Leah, I just put my, hi there.
Hi.
I just put my organization after my name, just, I don't know.
Yep, I'll do that too. Hang on.
I'm going to get us ready to open up the room. So if anybody has any last questions, now is the time. Oh, all right.
I just realized my logo's in the background. That looks really advertising.
Very
Sorry.
professional. No, it's good. That's professional, Leah.
It's just the wall in the room.
All right. Well, we'll let people come in toward the top of the hour. I'll start things off with an introduction. I'm doing bios, everything, and then I'll pass it off to Sheila, and it's your show. But thanks in advance for this, what I'm sure will be a great and wonderful and insightful and inspiring conversation. So no pressure.
All right, can I go ahead and let everyone in?
Yes. We got people coming in. I don't have pre-show music queued up, so just in your mind's ear, imagine something buoyant, but not offensive. I don't know what it would be.
This is a good theater exercise.
Yeah, we're gonna start with a little zip zap zop for everyone. Welcome everybody coming in. We'll be starting in just a moment. We're gonna let a few more folks in and get settled. But we're really glad to have you here and excited for this conversation. We'll get started in just about like a minute or so. All right, it is 5:01 here in the Central Time Zone. I've got some very moody rain and thunder and lightning ambiance going on behind me. Feels like a good afternoon to be inside talking about an important and vital subject. But first, I'll welcome you all. Hello, welcome. My name is Tanner Curl. I'm the Executive Director of MinnPost. For those of you who do not know, we are a nonprofit news organization that serves as a trusted guide for Minnesotans who are exploring the critical issues, challenges, and opportunities facing our state and our communities. We're really honored to have you here. We're excited for this conversation. It is a part of our MinnPost Social series. First, I want to thank a really important group of people, and that is our MinnPost members. If you are a member, if you support MinnPost at any amount, thank you so much. It keeps makes our coverage possible and keeps our coverage free for all readers. We do not have a paywall, and that is thanks to MinnPost members. I also want to thank our series sponsors, Great River Energy, along with Darla Kashian at RBC Wealth Management. Their sponsorship supports MinnPost, supports these important community conversations. We're grateful to have them as partners as part of the series. The other part of my screen. Today, we're going to be talking about theater community and some of the challenges, but also some of the opportunities facing theater, particularly as we continue to navigate this post, or at least post the onset of COVID world that we live in and what's going on. We're really excited for the conversation. Part of that taking part in that conversation, I want to introduce our guests. Justin Lucero, who is regarded as a leader in the theater world and in theater education, serves as the artistic director of Theater Latté, the award-winning musical theater company based right here in Minneapolis. Previously, he was a tenure track member of Carnegie Mellon University School of Drama, one of the world's leading theater conservatories. He was a professor of directing and associate chair of the John Wells Directing Program. He served as the artistic director for 6 of his 13 seasons at El Paso Opera. He is the recipient of several prestigious engagements and fellowships at some of the United States and the UK's top regional theaters, and an awardee of several national artistic leadership citations. Joining Justin in the conversation is Leah Cooper, who is the co-artistic director of Wonderlust Productions, a multicultural, multidisciplinary ensemble that illuminates community stories through collaborative arts experiences. She has been directing, producing, writing for theater for 35 years, has directed at many local theaters, served as the first executive director of the Minnesota Theater Alliance, which serves all 450 theaters in the state. Is it still 450 theaters? Was it at that time? Do we know? We don't know. We'll find out. Co-founder and partner of MinnesotaPlaylist.com, and was the executive director of the Minnesota Fringe Festival from 2001 to 2006. Welcome, Leah. Moderating the conversation is MinnPost own Sheila Regan. Sheila writes Cityscape column and newsletter here at MinnPost, and if you are not signed up to receive the free weekly Artscape newsletter. Did I say Cityscape? I meant Artscape. Yes. I meant Artscape all along. It's Artscape. That's the scape we're looking at, is arts, and that is Sheila's domain. You can sign up for free at our website. I'm sure maybe somebody might put a link here in the chat for you to sign up. If you're not signed up for this weekly newsletter, it helps you navigate what's going on, what's happening in the arts world locally, and connects you in. So I highly encourage you to sign up for that. Sheila writes for various outlets about the arts in the Twin Cities, and we won't go into it, but a fun fact is that Sheila and I were in a theater production together over a decade ago. And if you sign up for the Artscape newsletter, you'll get the full backstory and behind the scenes of that experience. So if that has not built up your anticipation, we're really looking forward to this important, vital conversation. I'm going to go to Sheila to moderate. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanner. Yeah, it's great to see everybody. It's just great to be here. It feels very moody right now. This is a lot of windows in this room, so I'm just like kind of surrounded by them right now. So yes, thank you everybody for coming. I see lots of folks that I know in the participant list, and I hope people will feel free to chat during the conversation, and add to the conversation in that form, and then we will open up to like a broader conversation at the end of our discussion. So I also just want to start before we get going and just say I am here. I am not in the MinnPost office right now. I'm in my South Minneapolis apartment, and I am on Dakota land, and I just want to acknowledge that. And I'm also acknowledge the 11 federally recognized tribes of Minnesota, along with the Ho-Chunk and other Native people that have cared for this place. Yeah, I thought we could get started. And this is a group activity. So I'm gonna ask Justin and Leah to share something, and then other people, if you want to put your own version of your answer to this question, please do in the chat. And so I had talked to Justin last week as we were getting ready to do this discussion, just kind of about what we were going to talk about. And one of the things that he had brought up is, just this, that in the pandemic, we have gotten used to streaming, and like has become, kind of a comfortable thing for people to do. We have more and more streaming services than ever before. So I thought we could start out by each of my panelists talking about a show they've seen recently that distinguishes itself from film and TV, something that really showed, what theater can do, what live theater can do. So who wants to start? Leah, how about you?
Oh, I was hoping you'd make Justin go first. I could not narrow it down to one, so I'm going to name two, but I think they have something in common. I really had my mind blown by the most spectacularly lamentable trial of Ms. Martha Washington at Mixed Blood Theater. But I also similarly had my mind blown at 5 at the Jungle Theater. And I think, what I've always said about the difference between theater and TV is the immersive quality, the close-upness of it. And I used to always say the writing's better, but then all the playwrights went and started writing for Hollywood. And that's the other thing that happened during the pandemic is like I was streaming and going, this is good writing. But what was unique about those two productions, it's not unique to them, but they were what came to mind for me, was they both really challenged my imagination. They challenged my comfort level. They took me on a journey like somewhere I didn't expect to go. And I really loved having that experience with people sitting next to me who were also uncomfortable, also surprised, also being asked to use their imaginations. And an equal part of the experience to what was on stage was feeling the reactions in the audience. And I don't get that at home. I mean, there's my husband's reaction, but like to be in a room full of 100 or 300 people having a reaction next to me, I still think that's what makes theater really special.
Cool. And how about you, Justin?
Well, I'm grateful, Leah, for you to invoke the Jungle Theater and Mixed Blood Theater so that I don't have to, because they're fantastic. I've only been around here for, I'm in my 9th month, and it's been really fantastic to catch as much as I can. I've been pretty voracious, and I've seen probably over 100 things in these past few months, mostly to get a sense of what the community loves about their theater. And I agree with Leah. The thing that theater does uniquely that streaming or TV or film doesn't is tap into the activation of the live audience that's there. People think of the live performers, but it's really the audience that is the final ingredient in making theater. And no company does it so purely as than 10,000 Things. 10,000 Things is a company that goes extra when it comes to activating audience imagination. They have no sets, they use no theater lighting. They just have bodies in space, and they have the audience sit around in chairs so that immersive quality is even more palpable. I'm thinking about a production that they did of The Hatmaker's Wife by Lauren Yee. I think it was, by Lauren Yee. And it was really fantastic because not only were we sitting next to the people and feeling what they were feeling, but they were sitting across from us too. So you always saw a sea of faces of audience members amongst the faces of the performers, which just constantly reminded us that they were making magic right in front of our eyes.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. All right. Nobody else wrote in the chat what their favorite theater production was that showed the magic of theater. So please do, because we all want to hear what the good shows were in the last. Oh, somebody, I am now. See, somebody did. Okay. Everybody else put in their thing. I see Jim Barrett pointed out that we are also streaming this event. So we're If you gotta beat them, join them in this particular case. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you guys so much. Yeah, and the next thing I wanted to just ask you as we're starting again this conversation is, you know, we have seen so much change in the last 4 years. And some of it has been devastating, and some of it has been completely transformative. But I wanted to think about, in what ways has the theater community and the theater scene and the art form gotten better since 2020? And Leah, I think I'll start with you first, because I also, I think I want to start you because you've been around for longer. And I know that you run a theater company now, but you also have a lot of experience working with other companies and, you know, with the Fringe Festival and with the Coalition of Theaters. I forgot the name of the organization, but you worked with multiple different nonprofit theater organizations. So I think you might be able to comment also on your knowledge of the past and how this might be a little bit different than the crisis we saw in 2008 to 2010. So sorry, that's like more than one question, but what's better, and how maybe it's a little bit different this time than our last crisis?
Well, wow, there's a lot to unpack there. I will say, I think one of the things that's common to, if you're talking about the 2008 crisis, which was largely an economic one, we are still suffering an economic crisis, right? And I think that's difficult for nonprofits, of course. But my favorite headline early in the pandemic was, "This wasn't the apocalypse you were expecting or prepared for." And I just totally felt that. I was like, I can handle zombies. I don't know how to handle isolation, you know? And I think one of the challenges I see, besides the fact that the audiences aren't, you know, yet back in the habit of coming out and going to see art, is that we were already changing before the pandemic. There were some very real demographic realities, right? The baby boomers are aging into retirement, and there's not that many of us Gen Xers, so we're not really a force. I mean, you know, one-on-one, we're all a force because we're snarky, but like as a group, there's not that many of us, right? And then there's the millennials coming up and the Gen Zs and whatever you want to call the younger generations. But those younger generations just had this devastating experience, right? That just took away their ability to continue growing in the world. And I think it remains to be seen.
Hey,
what's happening? I don't think I can get that. Am I back? Cool. I was like, I feel like I'm in an open mic setting. Sheila's laughing so hard. That was a great moment. Okay, what was I saying? Well, you asked me what's different and better, and I'm just like, oh my God, this generation, I feel so much heart for them. But what I'm saying is, I think that generation is still finding their feet, and I think we're going to discover what's better really, really soon. But I don't feel like I have a handle on it yet. In terms of what us old folks are doing that might be better is, we all had a chance to take a break and see what it was like to sit outside and hear the birds, and maybe not be such workaholics. We all, I think, are better at setting some boundaries for ourselves around our mental and physical health and those of our collaborators we work with. And I can't help but believe that shows up on stage when we take better care of ourselves and each other. I also think we all just, you know, took a deep dive into racial tensions in our cities specifically, and in our homes and in our communities. And we're coming back with a much deeper pain and understanding of how much needs to change in representation and whose stories are centered. And I'm seeing that on stage. I know the funders are supporting it. I know audiences are supporting it. I know theaters are supporting it. And therefore we are seeing different stories, and they're really exciting. So those, I'll stop because I bet Justin can add way more. And that was a lot. Your turn, Justin.
Cool. Thank you, Leah. Yeah, and so Justin, so the same question, you know, what has changed for the better? And again, coming from someone that's newer to the community, that's like kind of you're sort of meeting this community in a moment of transformation. But what would you say? It's changed for the better.
I mean, I will agree with the last 2 points, particularly, Leah, that it was during the pandemic that we offered ourselves a chance to reflect. And, you know, overlapping with that, we were having the reckoning of racial justice that, you know, obviously was an epicenter here. And so that break did allow us the time as an industry to think about what that means for our work. And we emerged from there really ready to center that kind of work. So I think definitely for the better, that incremental work that had happened leading up to the pandemic, right when things reopened, it became a focus of the industry. And so there are lots more really mindful, intentional policies around equity and the equitable practices of how we do what we do, which also includes taking breaks and setting boundaries and trying to make the gap of good pay less palpable also as it used to be. And so we're really interested in taking what we learned in the hardships and applying that to how we make the work, but it's also in the work. And so we're seeing a lot more work that's centering not only the emerging voices or the unheard voices, but also centering joy or centering healing as themes. We're also seeing a lot more original work. One of the things that I remember leading up to the pandemic is across industries, film in particular, we were having a big nostalgia boom where everything was remakes or old properties that we just wanted to feel the familiarity again. And so we were returning to properties that everybody grew up with. But then that kind of was stunted, and we're actually now gravitating more towards new stories, original stories, new voices, different perspectives, and spinning the old ways of how stories were written. So that's really exciting for me because all of those projects that were developed are now finally getting their premieres.
Cool. Yeah, Justin, would you share, I mean, thank you for that. And anything that you see that the Twin Cities is doing uniquely well in that regard?
Yes, I think the Twin Cities is definitely a hub for the development of new work. Between the Playwright Center, which is known nationally for helping gestate new plays, my company, Theater Latté, we're a music theater company. We have a major portion of our mission is to the development of new musical theater work. And so just around the cities, there's such a tradition for people investing in the development of new work. And there are whole pockets of performers who are dramaturgs as well. They have worked on new work for so many cycles that you get them in the room to work on something and they can't help but look at the journey, the architecture, the writing, the beats, like we say, and help build and develop the work as a team effort rather than just waiting for someone to come with a published thing and say, now do this. We all get to roll up our sleeves and collaborate and contribute. And so I definitely see a completely different feeling and environment of not only how we tackle new work, but we kind of prioritize new work in the Twin Cities, which is really cool. I also think that people don't realize until you get here just how vibrant an ecosystem it is of a theater ecosystem. Coming from outside the Twin Cities, we always hear about how awesome the work is in the Twin Cities. But now that I'm here, it's it really is awesome. It makes me so honored that I've been invited to be a part of it and help shape its future, because it's quite incredible.
Cool. So MinnPost did a little survey, and we would like to share some of the results of that, which I think someone else is doing. Help. Tanner, is somebody else going to share that stuff?
If I was supposed to share it, I was not alerted, but if you
Oh,
tell
okay.
me what
No.
questions you want,
Or
then
is
I can pull
Laura
it up.
maybe? Is Laura maybe going to, or like just the result, or is that for, or is that for like later? Yeah,
In terms of the full results, are there particular questions you wanted to hone in on for it?
we had, so there was like a little cheat sheet that showed kind of the highlights. That we were gonna maybe show, and then talk about it. And I can share it
That's
on
wonderful.
my computer.
Yes.
Shall I do that? Okay, sorry. I thought somebody was gonna maybe do that, but I will do it.
This is
Hopefully.
an informal,
Sorry, everyone.
free-flowing Zoom,
We're
y'all.
doing really good today. Okay. Hold on one second. Okay, while I do that, while I look for it actually, because I don't have it exactly ready. I'm gonna ask you guys another question. And so then I will have time to look for my survey results. And yeah, I just think generally, what would you guys say from 1 to 10? How healthy is the theater vibrance right now, and why do you say that number? Justin, you start.
It's a very relative thing, but I will say that the capacity for the theater making in the Twin Cities has not been reached. Because I look around and I see how many theaters have maybe programmed a season with fewer shows than the previous season, or all the theaters that I've attended have not been 100% full when I buy my ticket. So I will say it's probably more like a 6, because I see how much more room there is for all of those seats to be filled and every single month to be programmed with something.
How about you, Leah?
It's tough. I don't get to as much. I haven't seen 100 things in 9 months. Justin, you said that, I was like, oh, I feel envy. I'm working too much. Clearly, I need to get out more. So it's hard for me to know. I was really glad to hear you did a survey, because I was like, dang, I don't know that I can speak for enough people if we're going to talk about the health of the Twin Cities community. But I mean, for sure, I noticed that audiences are down. For sure, I know theater companies are struggling. For sure, I know that there are boards of directors right now and artistic directors and executive directors who are like, how are we going to make it to the end of the year and still be here next year? So I know we're not at top capacity. I also just remember the time when there were 20 shows to choose from on any Friday night, and when all of the media outlets were packed with articles, and that's not the case anymore. The media is in transition. Our theaters are in transition. But I also am aware that there is so much talent coming up, right? And when I say coming up, I don't just mean young people. I mean us old folks. We're transitioning. The pandemic changed our ways of making art, our ideas about art. I think there's a lot of inspiration out there. I do think there's a lot of people wanting to change the form in response to the changing world. So I just feel like, oh, give us 3 years and help us survive that long. And I think I honestly believe, I don't know, I've always been a little bit rose tinted this way, but I honestly believe we are potentially on the verge of a renaissance, because there is so much new creativity and new ideas and new inspiration. But I think it's still simmering. So much is in flux, including our own hearts, about how we do this, how we make art in changing times that is in response. My gosh, every day I read the newspaper and go, what just happened? Like it's hard to be responsive to these times when they are changing every darn day in in catastrophic ways. Cataclysmic, that's the word I'm looking for. We are in a time of cataclysmic change. The art is going to be amazing, but I think we're still finding our feet.
Thank you. Thank you both for that. And okay, so now I've heard that Tanner is going to be able to share this screen. Is that right, Tanner? Yay. Awesome.
That is accurate. So I don't know what you want to hide. This is not all just text, just so everybody knows.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to ground that this survey was filled out by 34 individuals from 30 organizations across Minnesota. 1/5 of those organizations, 20%, were from Greater Minnesota. The rest were from the Twin Cities. And it's a sort of range of budget sizes and so forth. And we will be sending this out to everyone afterwards, so you can have the numbers. You don't have to take notes or anything, but I'll skip down to the actual graphically interesting part.
Thank you, Tanner. Okay, so it says, how do audience numbers at your organization right now compare to pre-pandemic? So the majority of people, 64.7, said they are lower. 20 said they are steady, and 15% said they're higher. What do you guys think about this, Justin and Leah?
I think it's quite interesting because a lot of the peer institutions that I've been in contact with, I suspected that we'd all have the same answer. I won't say what that answer is, but it made me realize that, oh, it's because everybody had their way of handling the immediate. And so if you handled it in one way, you kind of feel the downturn later. And if you did it in a different way, you kind of felt the downturn immediately and you're on the upswing. So I think we're all feeling the same thing, just on a different timeline. And so by asking it now, it may mean that people are on the upswing, or it may be that people are on the downswing because they hadn't yet felt it.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. How about you, Leah?
Well, I guess, you know, having run the Fringe for a while and having run the Minnesota Theater Alliance for a while, and now running a theater company that's really different than most of the other theater companies, I also think this might reflect that we all have very different relationships to our audiences, and we have very different business models, you know. And so I think I agree with you, Justin. I think there's a time horizon reality of, you know, just like how far back on your heels were you, you know, when things changed, and where are you now? And a lot of places are in leadership transition, and sometimes that worked well and sometimes that didn't, right? Like, so I think it's really hard to aggregate when we're all pretty small organizations that are very personality driven and have unique relationships to our audience. I mean, speaking for Wonderlust, our audiences didn't dip, but we spent 2 years making our plays, and our plays are based on the stories of our audience. And so our audience, no matter what, they're still waiting to see their stories on stage, you know. And I think if your business model was, we produce a season of 5 shows and our subscribers make up 40% of our audience, and these people always show up, the new reality was really different from that, right? But if you're a theater that was always sort of in really close community relationship with your audience, and you're constantly pivoting in terms of what you're providing them, rather than a season of shows, it's a different story, you know. And I'm not making value judgments about what's better or what's more sustainable. It's just the reality that everybody went home and they're having a hard time coming back out, and different things motivate them to show back up.
Thank you. Cool. Thank you both for that. Let's go to the next graph. Currently, how do you feel about audience trends at your organization? 17.6% said they're very concerned. 26.5% they said they are somewhat concerned. 38.2% said somewhat hopeful, and 17.6% said very hopeful. That seems like a really mixed graph to me. I don't know what we take from this. What do you guys think? Leah, what's your response to this one?
Well, this feels like a Rorschach. You know, I mean, this is like the psychology of hope. My goodness. Ask me how hopeful I felt about our country 2 weeks ago and how hopeful I feel about it this morning versus this afternoon. And my answer will keep changing, you know, like, and I think our hope for our communities and our art is reflective of our hope for our larger world right now. And it's constantly moving. So that's, I know that's a cop-out answer, but I also think it comes to how much you have a sense of what's going to work, right? And I think it's real. We're all staring into crystal balls right now. There's a lot of uncertainty, and so I think hope is a moving target until we have a better handle on what. I mean, we can survey like crazy, right? But even audiences don't know what they want. If you ask me what gets me out to see a show, I don't have a good answer. You know, like I think it's a real moment of change where it's very hard to predict. And I think ambiguity, even though as artists, we're better at ambiguity than most, it's still hard. It still saps our hope when we truly don't know what's going to bring people back out, you know, when they don't even, I mean, so many people I talk to, they're not sure what their nervous system is going to be on any given day. So how can they tell me in a survey what show they're going to show up for and pay $25 for, you know? So I don't know. I think it's a mixed bag because I think our sense of certainty is really vague right now.
Cool. And how about you, Justin?
I will say that artists are also better than anyone at the hope thing. And so you ask us anything, we automatically think about the positive of it. I also think that, you know, if the core of the question is audience trends, and I think if your organization has been so reliant on the predictability of audience participation, then you're probably more likely to say concerned. But if you're just interested in seeing that they're at least coming back, even in a small amount, you might dip into the hopeful category.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we've got one more graph to look at. And so this is about the performing arts community as a whole. And this one's interesting because did nobody say they're somewhat hopeful? It's just like, it's so funny. The other one there were some people that said they were somewhat hopeful. This one, nobody said. So I don't know if that was like not a question in the survey. I'm not sure. But anyway, this seems, I don't know, I don't know. What do you guys think? It seems similarly mixed response.
Mixed, but the other one had more hopeful than not, and this one has more concerned than not. And I think that this is because probably this asked the surveyed to look to not their organization. And so when looking at our peers, we're seeing them hurting, or when we're entering their buildings, we're seeing the empty seats. And so we're concerned for our peer organizations. And, you know, also put any two nonprofit organization administrators in a room together, and our favorite thing to do is talk negative and ask, how are we ever going to do this? So this question makes me really do think the opposite of the artist is hopeful, but the admin, the execs, we're really concerned.
Leah, you had this great viral post on Facebook earlier this year where you kind of challenged some of the negative thinking that maybe you saw, I don't know, in the news or in social media. You're just kind of responding to this idea, oh, theater's dying, theater's doing so bad. And kind of you countered with like, what about this show? What about this show? What about this show? Go see this show. And yeah, I wonder, I mean, this is an interesting survey because it's not really, it doesn't tell us the numbers. It doesn't tell us really any numbers. It tells us kind of how people are feeling, or their perception. But I just wonder if you might be able to comment on, how do we how do we spin this? Or, you know, do we need to think about this in a different way? Do we need to think about it more positive? Would that help? I don't know.
I don't know about spin. I know this was a Facebook post where I just pointed out there was a lot of really exciting work going on. And I think I used the word Renaissance, but there were also people who were like, Renaissance or not, we're not selling any tickets and we might not be here if we can't sell tickets, right? And that is this dual reality that we, you know, Minnesota Citizens for the Arts said this when they were trying to fundraise for support for the arts during the pandemic. We were the first to close down and the last to reopen. We are also already one of the most fragile industries, right? We don't have a great distribution mechanism. Let's get real. It's not a great financial model, right? So we are kind of fragile. So that is still true. And also true, I think, is there's some really vital, exciting art being made that is really creative and really pushing boundaries. So I think we are in a renaissance, and I think we are in economically challenging and audience development challenging times. But that is not, in some ways it's new, but in some ways it's not. Art has always been a little out front, and always, I think the best art has to be patient and scrappy and a little desperate while waiting for the audience to catch up to it. And I think we're in that moment. That's what I keep telling myself anyway, when I go to brilliant shows that are half full, is I'm like, well, you know, like you said, Justin, I'm keenly aware of the people we are impacting. I do believe in the ripple effects of impacting even a small number of people. I do believe in the power of concentric circles of influence, that if we make something that activates an audience to think differently, they're going to talk to other people differently, and that's going to activate others to be more creative and to show up. So right now I'm holding on to both truths, believing it's not about spin, it's about holding on and getting there, you know, to the audience catching up and the resources catching up.
Right. And I think
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, that's actually the same question answer that I have, is that the difficulty is that yes, we need the resources to be able to make that really interesting, innovative work. But if people aren't coming, which affects the resources, it just becomes that much easier to program things that are not as bold, to program things that are not as original, and to go back to the really tried and true revival type work that people, people are going to come in droves to insert name of musical, for example. And so it's kind of daring, the economic realities are kind of daring us to go back to that, because we know that we'll be able to at least get some people in. So for those companies that have done that, for example, Theater Latté, I'm going to program Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella next season, which no one will say is the boldest thing that a theater can program. And yet we're going to do it in a bold way. So it's trying to do what we need to do to make sure that we can fund the other bold work that is in the remaining season. It's really tough. It's the realities don't let us create the renaissance that we feel we're on the precipice for. And I think it's stifling that renaissance, which is really scary.
Well, thank you. Thanks to everybody that's been commenting in the chat. And I just wanted to say we're getting close to when we're going to have question and answer time. And so if you would, you can either, I think there's a way to raise your hand in the chat. I'm not sure. I don't really use Zoom that much, but also if you have a question that you want to type, and just we'll read it and talk about it. I've got a couple more questions that I wanted to ask, but please say, just in the chat, say if you would like to ask a question, or just say what your question is. Okay. So the one thing I wanted to talk about in terms of this ticket, selling tickets or getting people in, or when I was talking to Justin again last week, we were talking about season tickets too, and getting people excited about buying season tickets again. And I thought you could maybe comment on, because Theater Latté does, you do dynamic pricing, but then you also do outreach in different groups. Somebody in the chat mentioned that there were, that they went to Newsies recently and there's a lot of young people, because there was like particular tickets for young people. So yeah, what's kind of, what have you seen with these sort of I don't know if you would call them experiments, but just things you've tried to kind of both get people in the door, but also use ticket sales to actually cover the cost of making the work, which continues to rise.
I mean, I will say that if you did ask people if there was a really clear reason why they don't come to the theater regularly, I'm not certain that the number one answer across the board will always be related to ticket prices. And so there's a myth, I think, that people think people don't go because the tickets are too expensive. That is definitely a factor, and is definitely difficult for the theater producers, because the simplest way to get more income is to raise ticket prices. At Theater Latté, we have a dynamic ticket pricing model. We have a system that changes the price of a ticket depending on the demand of a particular show. It's a very unique model, but it's not one that's unique to regular people, because that model is used for concerts, you know, like Taylor Swift or football games. So people are used to seeing prices fluctuate. But because we know that that has the potential then to be unpredictable or perhaps prohibitive for people, we have a slew of initiatives that allows people of certain backgrounds to tap into either a sliding scale, pay what you can model on certain performances, a lower ticket price because they're younger or part of a particular group. Certain days have really slashed prices so that there's a regular day that you can look to come. We have an initiative called Row A for All. We just launched a season subscription package that is priced lowest for people under the age of 39. So there are lots of ways to make sure that people don't just not come because they can't afford the ticket, which is really exciting. And I've noticed that this is actually the case across pretty much every organization. There are concession prices for people so that it is not a factor for why people don't come.
Well, yeah, and for both of you, yeah, what other ways should theater companies in the Twin Cities and Minnesota be thinking about getting maybe people that have been away, maybe people that never really went to theater in the first place? What are other ways besides the ticket price that will draw people in?
Oh, I could jump in on that. Not that I'm not here to tell anybody what anybody should do. I really think every theater needs to have a close relationship with its audience and its art, and being responsive to the folks that they're wanting to bring into their theater, right? Like, we don't all make theater for every single person out there. We make theater for our audience, right? And so I feel like being in close relationship with your audience and knowing who that is and knowing who else you want to continue to invite is like number one. But I'll also add, at Wonderlust, we sort of copied the mixed blood radical hospitality model. All of our tickets are pay what you can, but we say what the suggested price is. And we say you can pay less if you need to. And if you pay more, you make it possible for other people to pay less. And we always, our average ticket price is the suggested price. So it kind of works. And I sort of agree that I don't think ticket price is the only barrier or even the first barrier. What we find, because we make work with, for, by, and about a lot of people who've never been to theater, a bigger barrier is fear of the unknown. I saw some folks in the chat mentioning that people are afraid of crime. They're afraid they don't know where to park, you know, especially if they don't live in the urban environment. but also if they've never been to that particular theater before and they don't know the etiquette, So I feel like a really important thing we're discovering is what are all the ways we can say, we're going to tell you all the things you need to know. So you're going to feel like you know how to do this. You're not going to feel judged when you get there. You're going to know where to park. You're going to know how to get into the building. If you've got a disability, you're going to know we're ready for that. And we're going to help you find your way in and have an awesome experience. I just feel like we all have to keep getting better and better at meeting, knowing who our audience is and meeting them where they're at.
I do have to say, just in my experience in the last year, that downtown Minneapolis is extremely packed all the time. All the time. People are going to sports games, people are going to music concerts, people are going to clubs. So I guess I just don't, I understand that probably some people that may have gone to shows before aren't going, but I don't know if it's really, if you can really point to that and as being, I don't know. It's just, I have a hard time believing that is such a factor when I see it's just like swarms of people every time I go downtown on a Friday night.
Well, I agree that it's not exclusively about people being afraid of downtown. I think it's the fear of the unknown more than anything. Like, I think a lot of people who go to concerts are people who have been going to concerts since they were in high school. But if we want to invite new people to the theater who've never been, we have to think about what's intimidating about going to the theater, whether that's fear of crime or just fear of the unknown and the etiquette. What do I wear?
It's fear of the unknown, but also technically fear of what I know from that one time I've gone. So one of the things that I as a professor and as a teacher, I'm constantly thinking, well, the way forward is to introduce it as early as possible so that we can form those habits earlier and open those eyes and build those appetites earlier. But what happens is many of our very, very first experiences are the really expensive giant theater Broadway production that rolls into town. That is our first experience. And for many of us, it opens our imaginations and our hearts, and we want to do that. But sometimes it makes you only think of that image when someone says, hey, you want to go to the theater? You think it means being a part of a sea of 2,000 people in this giant auditorium to see this really sophisticated, highly designed production value production. And it actually is not that in the overwhelming cases, especially in the Twin Cities. Our theater is intimate, our theater is informal, our theater is in pockets of the community that aren't downtown or have a giant parking structure. And so people have this idea of, oh, it takes so much effort to get there, to buy the ticket, to park there, to dress properly, all of those things just because of that one experience they had very early on. So I think as leaders of these arts organizations, we need to collectively try to find ways to go back to the beginnings of people's lives to introduce them early on so that when they are in a place where they can choose what they're going to do for their evening or their weekend, it's not something foreign.
Yeah. I was just skimming the chat and I noticed people are talking too. And I think this goes right with what you're saying, Justin, of like people's first impression. The earlier it's introduced, the better, but also like, oh, you know what I wish I could do? I wish I could magically go and take away the first experience if it was a really bad one. Because let's just say it, bad theater is really bad and it makes you never want to go again, and everybody has a different definition of bad. But like, for example, I noticed like Hal, you mentioned this, and Robin, the social justice theater that is like really preachy and is really like, you should feel bad. Do you feel bad yet? We're going to make you feel more bad. Sit still. Do you feel bad yet? I feel like we need to help people know there's joy. There's really great joy in the theater. Even when we're talking about complicated things, there can still also be joy. And I really think we need that right now. And that is also a thing that scares people away from theater, is that sometimes we don't do a great job of making them know that it's going to be fun. And sometimes we don't do a great job of making it fun.
Justin, there's been a couple of, so we're talking about this Robin, can you actually say your question, or do you want us to just respond to your chat?
No, I can do that. It's a question about whether there are a ton of problems in the world, and theater artists are driven to solve the problems in the world. And yay, and I think theater and art and dance, et cetera, are amazing at solving problems. And the funders, especially after George Floyd, but in general, funders are doubling down on supporting that work. So also yay, hooray for the support. But I wonder whether we've done the work as artists. I'm not an artist, but I wonder if the organizations have done the work to either build the audiences that want to see the social justice, the challenging work, or make the case to regular audiences who just want to be entertained why why there's value in seeing other stuff.
Is that either of you want to take that?
Sure.
You guys?
I think it's so cyclical. I'm often so invigorated to make the case for why people should support theater or attend theater, and sometimes so exhausted that I have to make the case or entice people to come to the theater. It's a worthy thing, and I think artists are typically drawn to express and to reach and to solve all those things that Robin was saying. But again, I think it does have a little to do with your early experiences. People have, this is how I used to put it to my students, that disappointment comes from when your expectation and the reality are not the same. And especially when that gap is bigger, the disappointment is bigger. And so if everyone's expectation is that the show is going to be entertaining, or if everyone's expectation is that the show is going to make me feel good, and then they come and it's not that, they're really disappointed and they're really turned off to come again. So it takes a really bold organization or maker to either lean in on then, okay, we're still going to make the thing that we think we need to make and respond in the way that we need to respond to the moment with my art. Or you have to really try and maybe marry the two things, where you talk some really, really difficult subject matter in a really funny, hilarious, entertaining, spectacle way. But those aren't always the correct avenues or the interesting avenues for the artists themselves. So artists should also have the freedom to make it not funny haha if they don't want to.
I would agree. It's very much about transparency and about having a conversation with your audience about what you're making and why you're making it. But I also think the art, I just don't enjoy art that leads with a message. I just don't think it's our job to fix. I don't think it's our job to tell people what they should do with our art. I think our job is to bring humility and curiosity to the big, hard questions, while also bringing luminous, great craft that is so transformative that people don't feel like they got humiliated, shamed, excluded, or preached to. And yet they're standing somewhere new and the world looks different to them after experiencing our art. I mean, that's hard. That's what we do. But that's what I think we should be aiming for. I think it's not about tricking the audience, and it's not about spinning, and it's not about pretending we're something different than we are. But I think humility is key. I think knowing that we are asking questions that we don't necessarily have all the answers to. But also, I'm seeing Barbara Berlovitz on the call, and I just want to call out like the work of Jun Loon back in the day, and Barbara still now, that is luminous, right? And so we're experiencing something complicated, but we're also, our heart is alive while we're experiencing it, right? And honestly, just like we're like, okay, people might be afraid of downtown, but I see 50,000 people showing up for a concert. I also think a lot of people are sitting on their couch watching TV, but they're watching some really challenging things on TV these days. So I don't want to underestimate the audience's capacity for hard things. I just think we have to also make it fantastic journey. Hi, Barbara, put you on the spot there.
We just have like 4 minutes left.
We have somebody, Jim Barrett has their hand raised. Jim, if
Okay,
you wanna
let's
go ahead.
give him the floor.
Thank you. I'm involved in the opioid overdose problem. And there are many organizations and many people working on this to solve the problem, and the problem has been getting worse every year. My thing is that we don't know what works and what doesn't work, and so we have to keep trying new things. And I think that the same goes for theater. And I'll give you an example. Bard Shakes at Malcolm Yards. So it's a group that does really fun Shakespeare at Malcolm Yards, which is obviously not a regular theater place. This summer, Hatch Dance did a performance on the roof of the parking ramp at the Minneapolis Club, which was an amazing experience, and it had seating like they do at 10,000 Things. So I think to a certain degree, we have to try different things, do it in places we don't normally do it, in order to find out what will work.
Thank you, Jim. Any other final thoughts here? You guys have been making such great comments in the chat. I really appreciate it. Any last thing that somebody wants to share, or maybe we can just give it to you two to say it. Oh, was there somebody?
Yeah, so I was trying to find the hand and I couldn't find the hand, so
Okay.
I'm just speaking up. So I saw many references to Skeleton Crew at the Guthrie, but I first saw that at Yellow Tree Theater, which is a really amazing little company that Faustine Ban is leading right now. And they do amazing stuff. Excuse me, I had a cold. And it gets so little attention, and it might be partly the location in beautiful downtown Anoka. But it's like there are, and several people have mentioned this, a lot of amazing little companies out there doing amazing stuff. And she's such a dynamo. But it's the Guthrie. And I think she directed it at the Guthrie, but I guess I think about little theaters for and for people that are afraid to go to downtown Minneapolis, there's Anoka.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Yeah.
Can I respond to that, because it's something that's been on my heart too, and I've been talking to people about this. One of the other things that we as theater makers do really, really well is we make things. We know how to put on a show. We know how to make people who do get to our theaters have a great time. And I agree with you. Out of those 100 things that I've seen here, I've enjoyed 100 things. It has been amazing to experience all of these things. There is, like Leah said, the art is great. So it is not because there isn't great stuff to see that we're not doing it, but that is the double-edged sword, is that as people are experiencing theater, they're seeing the product that is on the stage being exceptional. So they are unable to see the struggle behind it, because we do such a good job making such a great show with so little. And it just makes it that much harder for people to see the need. And it just takes, one company to say, we can't do that anymore, and they shut down. So it goes from a really great show to a company that folds, because you don't see the gradual degradation, because we're so good at putting on a great show.
Well, we are unfortunately at the end of our time. Any final thoughts, Leah or Justin, from this conversation?
Well, I'd love to do a plug for a project my company just did that.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Well, it's in response a little to the person who said we have to keep trying different things, right? And this project, it's not in a theater. We made 31 short audio plays inspired by stories and places of downtown St. Paul. And they're all experienceable by scanning QR codes on stickers stuck on the sidewalk all over downtown St. Paul. It's not a history tour. It's not educational. They are fiction. They are plays. They are theater. And they are kind of an augmented reality experience in a place-based environment. And it's just us trying to meet the audience in a whole new way and enjoy the pleasure of the intimate experience of earbuds and audio. So it's both artistically curious and, hey, can we find a new audience this way? Oh, it's called Hidden Herald.
Thank you. Thank you. And how about you, Justin? Any last comments?
Well, if we're plugging, Theater Latté is currently presenting our Festival of New Work, where we invite teams to develop brand spanking new musicals and test them out in front of a couple of audiences in advance of our season that's coming up now in the fall. 5 really great things that you all should come take a look.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to just thank everyone for being here. Thank you so much for all of your comments and for those of you that spoke, and just thanks for coming. And I'm going to throw it back to you, Tanner.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you for moderating this great conversation. Thanks to Justin and Leah for participating. Thanks to everybody who joined in the chat. We've done a lot of these events. This was the liveliest chat we've ever had as one of these events. So gold stars all around. This is also the first Zoom bombing we've ever had for one of these. And we have these with like pretty high level elected officials sometimes. So we all live to tell the tale. We all survived. But with that, I'll thank our sponsors, Great River Energy and Darla Kashian of RBC Wealth Management, and thank all of you for being here. I will put a plug in for Artscape newsletter. There's a sign up link in the chat, and an additional thanks to all the MinnPost members who make conversations like this, all of our coverage possible. You can join this august group of people by going to MinnPost website and clicking on that donate button. Thanks you all for being here. Have a good, safe evening, and I hope to see all of you at a wonderful performing arts venue very soon.
Thank you, MinnPost.
Bye, everyone.